An elderly man climbed onto a window ledge and suddenly spotted a decomposing corpse. The old man was so frightened he nearly fell off. After receiving the report, police rushed to the scene and used a winch to lift the body from the steel wire mesh. As the detective examined the railing, he discovered a large amount of bloodstains. The overlapping blood marks resulted from repeated friction, suggesting this might be a murder case. The medical examiner found a circular hole in the victim's head, which appeared to be caused by a gunshot wound. The weapon used by the killer was most likely a rifle. The bullet shattered half of the victim's skull, which was probably the direct cause of death. Testing revealed beta-blocker medication in the victim's liver. Combined with carpal tunnel syndrome in the victim's right hand, the detective deduced the victim was likely a professional assassin. Professional killers often take beta-blockers to steady their hands, while carpal tunnel syndrome results from repetitive pressure on the thumb and trigger finger. Through investigating surgical records at local hospitals, Angela successfully identified the victim as Gene. Gene's brother was shocked to hear of his death and explained that Gene wasn't a professional assassin at all. His true identity was a professional golfer. Gene was quite skilled and fairly well known, and had recently been preparing to compete in a championship tournament. This led investigators to suspect the killer might be a rival competitor. The detectives immediately went to the championship venue. The players expressed shock upon hearing of Gene's death. Jeff was the course manager. In his view, if Gene hadn't met with this tragedy, he would certainly have been this year's Golf Masters Cup champion. At that moment, the detective noticed the wife's perfectly formed finger bones and elegant metacarpals, deducing she must be a hand model. The wife loudly praised her accuracy. The detective then asked if Gene had any enemies in competition, but Jeff's wife immediately indicated there was one person who particularly disliked Gene, a man named Dayama, last year's Mini Golf Masters Cup champion. The two detectives tracked down the former champion Dayama. Dayama had originally been a professional golfer but joined mini golf after being eliminated. Since Dayama's arrival, he had dominated the sport's annual championship until Gene appeared and knocked him off his pedestal. However, Dayama flatly denied killing Gene. The female detective then discovered a small room nearby. On the wall, she found blood residue along with fragments of skull and brain tissue. It appeared this was the primary crime scene where Gene was killed. The intern found fragments of frontal bone, brow bone, zygomatic bone, and nasal bone in the room. Hodgins noticed 3 holes in the room's wall that were slightly smaller than bullet holes, suggesting they were probably caused by fragments from the same bullet. Strangely, the spacing between the 3 holes was identical. Amir discovered stitches on Gene's brow bone. Puzzlingly, these were ordinary household thread. A doctor would never make such a basic error. The intern had found remodeling fragments on Gene's right second through 4th metacarpal bones and surrounding bones. So these injuries and the brow bone wounds should have come from the same incident. Angela reviewed Gene's communication records and discovered Gene had been in close contact with a girl named Andy. Notably, Andy was only 18 years old while Gene was approaching 40. Andy's manager was her father, who was very angry about the relationship between Gene and his daughter. He admitted he had wanted to wring Gene's neck, but before he could act, Gene was already dead. Andy seemed to thoroughly enjoy being with Gene. Regarding the beating Gene suffered 10 days earlier, Andy stated she was present. At the time,